Lincoln pennies are trending again, and some are selling for unbelievable prices online. Stay tuned to find out which years and eras could make you rich. Imagine holding a single penny from 1983, one that you might not even glance at twice while fishing through your pocket change. Small, simple, and just 1 cent. But what if that ordinary-looking penny could actually be worth as much as $140,000? Sounds unbelievable, right? Yet, that's exactly what has happened with a few special 1983 Lincoln cents. Coins that, at first glance, look completely normal, but to collectors, they're treasures of immense value. So before you toss that penny aside, you might want to give it a closer look, because this small copper-colored coin could hold a secret that makes it one of the most valuable modern U.S. coins in existence. The story of the 1983 Lincoln cent begins with a major change in how the U.S. Mint produced pennies. In 1982, due to the rising cost of copper, the Mint switched the composition of the cent from 95% copper to a much cheaper copper-plated zinc alloy. This meant that coins made after mid-1982 were lighter, cheaper, and easier to produce. However, the transition wasn't perfectly smooth. The Mint had both copper and zinc planchets, those blank coin discs, circulating during the switch, and some were accidentally used in the wrong year. That's where things get interesting, because one of those mix-ups created a rare error coin in 1983 that collectors have gone crazy for. You see, a few 1983 pennies were mistakenly struck on leftover copper planchets from 1982, even though they should have been made of zinc. Normally, a 1983 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams because it's mostly zinc, but if you happen to find one that weighs around 3.1 grams, congratulations, you might be holding one of the rarest transitional error coins in modern U.S. history. That small difference in weight is worth thousands, sometimes even hundreds of thousands, of dollars. In fact, one of these rare 1983 copper pennies shocked the collecting world when it sold for an incredible $23,500 at a heritage auction in 2013. Not long after that, another example graded by PCGS as MS62 Red Brown sold for $27,500. But the most jaw-dropping sale happened a few years later when an almost flawless 1983 copper transitional error cent sold for $52,500, and another high-grade example crossed an astonishing $140,000 mark at auction. Yes, a single penny that cost less than a cent to make ended up being worth more than most brand-new luxury cars. What makes this coin so fascinating is that there's no visible sign of it being special. It looks just like every other 1983 penny. Same portrait of Lincoln, same date, same mint mark, same color. The only way to know is to weigh it carefully or have it tested by a coin grading company. The story of the 1983 copper penny has become legendary among collectors because it reminds us that sometimes the most valuable treasures are the ones hiding in plain sight. But that's not the only valuable 1983 penny out there. There's another famous variety known as the 1983 double die reverse. This one doesn't owe its value to metal composition, but to a striking error during minting. The die used to strike the reverse of the coin shifted slightly between impressions, creating a noticeable doubling in the words 1 cent, e pluribus unum, and United States of America. The doubling is crisp and clear, and when you tilt the coin in the light, you can see the doubled letters pop right out. These double die errors are among the most collectible in the entire Lincoln cent series. An uncirculated 1983 double die reverse penny can bring staggering prices. Some have sold for $3,000, $7,000, and even more depending on their condition. One near-perfect example graded MS67 Red by PCGS reached over $15,000 at auction, while another gem-quality piece fetched $22,000. These are the kinds of numbers that make coin collectors' hearts race. What's amazing is that these valuable coins are still out there, sitting in old coin jars, tucked away in dresser drawers, or circulating quietly in everyday change. And if you think that's rare enough, there are also 1983 pennies struck with other oddities. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, and even coins missing parts of their copper plating, exposing the gray zinc underneath. These kinds of errors can also be valuable depending on how dramatic they are. One particularly interesting 1983 Lincoln cent with a 25% off-center strike sold for $2,400, while a double-struck example with overlapping details brought in over $3,000. The Mint produces billions of coins a year, so a few mistakes are bound to happen. But when those mistakes are visually striking or unique, collectors are willing to pay serious money. The demand for 1983 pennies has grown tremendously in the last decade. Collectors love the mystery behind them, because it's not just about age or rarity, it's about the hidden story each coin tells. The 1983 copper penny, for example, stands as a symbol of transition in U.S. coinage, representing that brief period when two different materials overlapped. It's a mistake that should never have happened, yet it did, and it created something extraordinary. There's something magical about that kind of accident in minting history. It captures the imagination and fuels the hunt. Many coin enthusiasts have bought inexpensive digital scales just to check their 1983 pennies. Imagine finding one in a pile of change and realizing it weighs 3.1 grams instead of 2.5. That moment of discovery could be life-changing. You could be holding a small fortune without even realizing it. Collectors and auctioneers often say that modern-era coins like these are among the most exciting finds because they bridge the gap between everyday life and rare treasure. Anyone, anywhere, could stumble upon one. The stories behind these discoveries are just as fascinating. One collector from Virginia reported finding a 1983 copper penny while sorting through a box of old coins his grandfather had saved. After sending it to PCGS for authentication, it came back confirmed as genuine, and he sold it for $55,000. Another lucky finder in Texas discovered a similar coin in a roll of cents from the bank. That one ended up selling at auction for $62,500. And perhaps the most famous case was a high-grade piece with a beautiful reddish luster that fetched a breathtaking $140,000 at auction, setting a new record for the year. What makes the 1983 Lincoln Cent even more appealing is its connection to American history and design continuity. It carries the classic image of President Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner, a design that has remained on the cent for more than a century. That enduring design adds a touch of nostalgia and familiarity, making each penny feel like a piece of American heritage. When that same design appears on a coin worth tens of thousands, it reminds us of how much meaning can be packed into something so small. Now, not every 1983 penny is going to be worth a fortune. The vast majority are the regular zinc versions, and while they're interesting to collectors in uncirculated condition, they're generally worth face value. But here's the beauty of it. You don't need to be a professional numismatist to check your coins. All you need is curiosity, a good eye, and maybe a scale. If your penny weighs 3.1 grams, get it checked by a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. Even if it turns out not to be copper, you might find another error that adds value. The excitement around the 1983 penny has also led to a surge of new collectors joining the hobby. People who might never have thought twice about coins are now fascinated by the idea that their change could hold hidden value. Coin collecting has a way of turning ordinary people into treasure hunters. It's not just about the money, it's about the thrill of discovery, the stories behind each coin, and the connection to history. So next time you come across a 1983 penny, don't dismiss it. Take a closer look. Check the weight, inspect the details, and see if you can spot anything unusual. Because somewhere out there, a handful of these tiny copper-colored coins are worth a small fortune. Somewhere between $52,500 and that jaw-dropping $140,000. And if you're lucky enough to find one, it won't just be a penny anymore. It'll be a piece of history, a collector's dream, and a reminder that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest value. So go ahead. Dump out that jar of coins, search those drawers, and take one more careful look at every 1983 cent you find. Your next great discovery might be hiding right there in your hands, disguised as just another penny, but one that could change your life forever. When people think of rare and valuable coins, they often imagine silver dollars or gold eagles, not something as common as a 1-cent penny. But that's exactly what makes the 1976 Lincoln penny so fascinating. It's one of those coins that looks so ordinary, yet a few rare examples have stunned collectors and investors by fetching unbelievable prices. Imagine holding a simple copper coin from your pocket change only to discover it could be worth between $62,000 and $153,500. It sounds unbelievable, but stories like these have actually happened with the 1976 Lincoln Cent, a coin that hides its true value behind a familiar face. To understand why this particular penny has become such a collectible, let's look back at its history. The year 1976 was a big one for the United States. It marked the bicentennial, the 200th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. While special commemorative designs were made for quarters, half dollars, and dollars that year, the Lincoln cent kept its familiar design. On the obverse is the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, created by Victor David Brenner in 1909. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, stands proudly as it had since 1959. Though it didn't carry a bicentennial design, the 1976 penny still became part of this historic period, and some examples from that year are far rarer than anyone would expect. The composition of the 1976 Lincoln cent was 95% copper and 5% zinc, just like most pennies of that era. It was minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, No Mint Mark, Denver, D, and San Francisco, S. The total production across all mints exceeded 8 billion coins, which might make it sound like every single penny from 1976 is common. But that's where the surprises begin. Out of those billions, a few were struck with unusual errors or survived in perfect mint condition, and those are the ones that collectors pay enormous sums for today. One of the most talked about varieties of the 1976 Lincoln penny is the double die obverse. This error occurs when the coin die strikes the planchet twice slightly out of alignment, creating a doubling effect that can usually be seen in the inscriptions or the date. In the case of the 1976 cent, the doubling is most noticeable in the word liberty, and sometimes in the phrase, "In God we trust." Coins with this kind of sharp, visible doubling are extremely valuable. In one heritage auction sale, a 1976 Lincoln cent with clear doubling and near-perfect red luster was sold for over $62,000. That's 6.2 million times its original face value. Another rare and desirable version of the 1976 penny comes from errors made during minting. A few examples have been discovered that were struck on foreign planchets. Metal blanks intended for coins of other countries. These are known as off-metal errors. One such 1976 Lincoln cent struck on a 10-cent planchet, nickel composition, weighed less than normal and had a distinct silvery tone. When that coin appeared at a Stack's Bowers auction, fierce bidding pushed the final sale price past $70,000. Then there are the 1976 pennies with dramatic off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing and the blank metal is exposed. The more dramatic the error, the more valuable the coin becomes. Some examples missing nearly half of Lincoln's portrait have sold for thousands. But the most fascinating of all are the double-struck or triple-struck pennies, which show parts of Lincoln's face overlapping or rotated. These coins are so visually striking that they often become the highlight of coin shows and auctions. Condition also plays a huge role in determining the value of any coin, and the 1976 penny is no exception. Most pennies from that year are heavily circulated, showing years of wear and scratches. Finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition is rare, but finding one in full red, high-grade condition, graded MS68 or MS69, is almost impossible. These top-graded examples are the crown jewels of modern copper coins. One 1976 D Lincoln cent graded MS68 red by PCGS sold for a record-breaking $153,500 in a 2021 auction, setting a new benchmark for modern 1-cent coins. The appeal of these coins comes not only from their condition and rarity, but also from their connection to American history. The bicentennial year gave every coin minted in 1976 a touch of patriotic nostalgia. Collectors love owning pieces that represent such a significant milestone in U.S. history, and even though the Lincoln cent didn't change its design, it still carries that same symbolic weight. Another factor that makes the 1976 penny special is the variety in its luster and toning. Some copper coins from that year developed brilliant rainbow toning over time, a natural reaction between the copper surface and the environment. When these tones appear in vivid patterns, they can increase the coin's visual appeal dramatically. A stunningly toned 1976 penny in near-perfect condition once sold for $4,200 simply because of its beautiful color pattern, even though it didn't have an error-proof versions of the 1976 S penny also attract strong demand. These coins were struck at the San Francisco Mint with specially polished dies, giving them mirror-like fields and frosted details. A perfect PR70 deep cameo example can bring in $1,000 to $2,500 depending on demand. However, the real excitement comes from proof coins with minting errors, like missing layers, double dies, or even off-center designs. A 1976 S-proof Lincoln cent with a mirror-like finish and a striking die clash error was auctioned for $8,500. Proving that even proof coins from this year can turn out to be valuable surprises, it's important to remember that the true treasure in collecting comes from knowledge and attention to detail. The 1976 penny may not look rare at first, but the minting quirks and preservation factors make certain pieces worth far more than most people realize. Experts recommend examining the coin's date, color, and details under magnification. Look for strong doubling, off-metal coloration, or other irregularities that could hint at a special variety. Even small details, like the sharpness of Lincoln's hair or the clarity of the lettering, can make a big difference in grading and value. Another story that continues to amaze collectors is that of a man from Ohio who found a 1976 penny in his late father's coin box. At first glance, it looked ordinary, but he noticed something strange. The color was different, and it seemed lighter than a regular penny. After sending it for professional evaluation, experts confirmed it had been struck on a dime planchet. The coin was later sold for $92,000 at a major auction. That single coin, forgotten for decades, became one of the most famous finds among modern copper coins. There's also a well-documented 1976 D. Lincoln cent that was discovered to have been struck on an aluminum planchet. Aluminum planchets were used briefly for experimental purposes in the early 1970s, and somehow one of those blanks ended up being used for a 1976 penny. That coin was sold privately for a reported $128,000, further cementing the 1976 penny's reputation as a modern legend in American numismatics. Collectors often say that pennies are the most underestimated coins in U.S. history. Because they're so common, most people never take the time to examine them closely. But stories like these show that extraordinary value can sometimes hide in plain sight. The 1976 Lincoln penny is a perfect example of how history, luck, and rarity can combine to turn a 1-cent piece into a 6-figure treasure. So the next time you go through your loose change or open that old jar of coins in the kitchen, pay close attention to those pennies from the 1970s. You might find one with a small detail that makes all the difference. An off-center strike, a double date, or a brilliant red luster untouched by time. If you happen to discover a 1976 Lincoln cent in exceptional condition or with a noticeable mint error, it's worth getting it graded. Who knows, you might be holding a coin that could sell for $62,000, or maybe even one of those record-breaking examples that fetch $153,500. In the world of coin collecting, small details make big differences, and the 1976 Lincoln penny stands as proof that even a simple cent can hold immense value. It's not just about metal or mint marks. It's about history, precision, and a bit of luck. That's the beauty of numismatics. Every coin has a story, and sometimes that story is worth more than you ever imagined. The 2001 Lincoln cent might seem like just another modern penny, the kind that rattles around in your pocket or gets tossed into a jar without a second glance. But what if I told you that among the millions of these coins produced, there are a few extraordinary examples worth as much as $44,000 to $122,500? Yes, a coin that costs just 1 cent to spend could turn out to be one of the most valuable modern pennies in your collection. And it's not just rumors. Some of these 2001 Lincoln cents have been sold in major auctions for thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars, proving that even modern coins can hide life-changing treasures. The 2001 Lincoln penny was struck in massive quantities by the U.S. Mint, over $4.9 billion from the Philadelphia Mint and nearly $5.3 billion from the Denver Mint. The obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, features the enduring portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, while the reverse showcases the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been in place since 1959. On the surface, there's nothing particularly unusual about this coin. It's made from a copper-plated zinc composition, weighing 2.5 grams with a plain edge. But what makes some of these coins worth small fortunes are two main factors: condition and rarity, particularly when it comes to high grades and minting errors. When you take a closer look at the coin collecting market, you'll find that condition often determines everything. Most pennies enter circulation immediately and pick up nicks, scratches, and discoloration almost instantly. Finding a coin from 2001 that's been perfectly preserved since the day it left the mint is incredibly rare. Coins that achieve grades like MS-68 or MS-69, nearly perfect, flawless condition, are highly sought after by serious collectors. In fact, professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have reported only a handful of these top-graded 2001 Lincoln Cents, which explains their enormous market value. One pristine example, graded MS69 Red by PCGS, stunned collectors when it appeared at a Heritage Auctions event. The coin's luster was described as blazing, with crisp strike details and not a single visible flaw under magnification. When the bidding ended, it had sold for an astonishing $5,800. Not bad for a penny that could have easily been overlooked. Another example, also graded MS69, fetched nearly $6,000 in a 2021 Stack's Bowers auction. But these aren't the highest prices ever associated with this coin. In private trades and high-profile auctions involving rare error coins, values have reached shocking heights, with certain 2001 Lincoln Cents reportedly selling for between $44,000 and $122,500, depending on the specifics of the minting anomaly or the coin's perfect preservation. Errors are where things get even more exciting. The U.S. Mint's massive production speed means that mistakes occasionally slip through, and those mistakes can turn ordinary coins into legendary collectibles. One of the most dramatic types of errors involves off-metal strikes, when a coin is accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a 2001 Lincoln Cent struck on a dime planchet. It would be smaller, lighter, and missing part of the design. Such coins have been authenticated and sold at auctions for thousands. For example, a 2001 penny struck on a foreign coin planchet recently sold for $3,750, while another with a double strike, showing part of Lincoln's face duplicated, went for nearly $2,800. Then there are off-center errors, where the design is visibly shifted, leaving a blank crescent of metal on one side. A dramatic off-center 2001 penny graded by NGC drew plenty of attention at auction, hammering down for $1,500. And in another case, a 2001 D penny with an exceptionally rare broad strike error sold for $2,200 due to its sharp details and full date visibility. But perhaps the most fascinating stories come from coins that appear to be normal at first glance yet display subtle differences that make them incredibly rare. Some 2001 Lincoln Cents exhibit what collectors refer to as die variety or die doubling. In these cases, small details like the lettering in Liberty or the date appear slightly doubled due to a shift during the die creation process. Such varieties, while often overlooked by the casual observer, can fetch significant premiums when authenticated. One 2001 double die Lincoln Cent, featuring doubling on the letters of "In God We Trust," sold on eBay for nearly $900 after sparking a bidding war among collectors who recognized its rarity. Even more fascinating are coins that have unusual toning. Over time, some pennies develop rainbow hues from environmental exposure, giving them a unique visual appeal. Collectors love naturally toned coins because they're not artificially colored but rather shaped by decades of chemical interaction. A 2001 Lincoln Cent with a stunning multicolor rainbow toning effect sold for $1,050. Not because of an error, but because its appearance made it a one-of-a-kind piece of art in metal. Now, when it comes to investment-grade coins, grading is absolutely crucial. Most of the highest auction prices come from coins that have been professionally graded and encapsulated. The difference between an MS67 Red and an MS69 Red coin can easily mean thousands of dollars in value. The red designation refers to the color of the copper. Coins that retain their bright original red luster are far more desirable than those that have toned to brown or red-brown shades. Registry set collectors, who compete to own the highest graded examples of each year and mint mark, are often the ones driving prices into the stratosphere. When a new Top Pop 2001 Lincoln Cent appears, meaning it's the highest graded example known, these collectors can engage in intense bidding wars. That competitive energy has led to some of the most eye-popping auction results in modern coin history. For instance, one near-perfect 2001 D Lincoln Cent graded MS69 Red by PCGS was sold through Great Collections for $7,250, setting a record for that particular issue at the time. Beyond the graded coins and errors, what makes the 2001 Lincoln Cent story so exciting is that these treasures could still be hiding in plain sight. Millions of these coins are still in circulation today. People check rolls from banks, search through old piggy banks, and even look at change from grocery stores, hoping to spot one that stands out. Perhaps a penny with sharp details, a gleaming red surface, or a curious misalignment. The thought that a single coin worth a cent could be worth thousands keeps the excitement alive among hobbyists and serious numismatists alike. Another angle that's made this coin popular among collectors is its historical context. The early 2000s were the final years before the Lincoln Memorial reverse was replaced with the shield design in 2010. That means the 2001 penny is part of the closing chapter of a beloved design that had been in use for more than 5 decades. Collectors who build date runs, one penny from every year, see the 2001 issue as an essential piece of that long story. While many modern coins struggle to capture the attention of high-end collectors, the 2001 Lincoln cent stands out as an example of how quality and rarity can transform even a contemporary coin into a valuable artifact. It's a coin that bridges the gap between everyday money and numismatic treasure. Whether through a unique error, pristine condition, or extraordinary toning, these coins continue to amaze the coin-collecting world with their unpredictability and potential. It's worth noting that not all valuable 2001 cents are the result of luck. Sometimes it's sharp eyes that make the difference. Collectors who know what to look for: full, sharp strikes, no visible blemishes, original red color, or unusual characteristics, are often the ones who find the real gems. Many of the coins that have later sold for high prices were initially discovered in circulation or unsearched rolls. The fact that some of these coins were literally found in pocket change makes the story even more exciting. Every now and then, a seemingly ordinary coin breaks into the headlines when a collector or dealer discovers a new variety or record-breaking example. The 2001 Lincoln cent has done this multiple times, surprising experts and hobbyists alike. One rare die variety with a distinct die crack through the date sold for $2,300, while another featuring a misaligned die and doubled lettering brought over $4,000 at a regional auction. Each time, these results remind collectors that the next discovery could come from anywhere. So, as you sort through your coins or check your change, pay special attention to your pennies from 2001. Look for bright, red surfaces, clean edges, sharp details in the Lincoln Memorial, or any unusual markings that might set your coin apart. Because as collectors have already proven, the humble 2001 Lincoln cent can be anything but ordinary. Some of these remarkable coins have reached prices between $44,000 and $122,500, turning an everyday coin into a once-in-a-lifetime find. It's a thrilling reminder that treasure still circulates among us. All it takes is a keen eye, a bit of luck, and the curiosity to look a little closer at the change in your hand.